Hey, everybody, this is Matt Ferry. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday. It is January the 28th, 2021. I'm joined with my friend and compatriot, Justin Miller. Justin, how you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great.
Good. It's
Just
good to see you.
right. Yeah, good to see you too. Good to see you too.
It's a new year. So there's new possibilities, new opportunities in the new year. But I'm excited because we got a new president, one who seems to be taking the needs of the people more seriously. We got a new vice president, got three new senators. Uh, you know, there's so much in the news right now. I'm kind of breezing by some stuff, but I'm very thankful that we have some new leadership and we've got some new national leadership as well. We've got a new chair of the DNC, Jamie Harrison from South Carolina, who ran a great race against Lady G, Lindsey Graham. And we also have a new state party chair, Hendrell Remus, who is a great guy and I think is going to do great job in that position. Whenever you have new blood in any kind of position, it's exciting. But I think these two gentlemen are very, very smart and they're very realistic in what they want to do. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. We're going to be joined by Brandon Thomas, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. But first, Justin, I want to talk to you about some stuff that's been going on in the news lately. You know, we have a state that's controlled by the Republican Party, the modern Republican Party. They've been in power for, over 10 years now. They've had a supermajority since 2010. And I would say that they have bungled so many things that we literally cannot list them. But they have definitely bungled healthcare in this state, and they've definitely bungled public education as well. We have not fully funded our public educational system for years, and now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and they continue to play games. So they had a special education session recently where they did pass a couple of things, but there's other things that are not so final. But basically, they want schools to open up again. And Bill Lee made another announcement today that he wants these schools to be open. He also threatened, and some lawmakers also threatened to pass a bill that would punish school systems that have been all virtual, saying that unless you've been open for 70%, something like that, of the school year, you're not going to get the state funding. So that is wrong and that is evil to do. But what do you think about this new educational session? Tell me your thoughts about this.
I mean, it was just more of the same from the Republican Party. It was zero respect for our teachers, zero respect for public education. They have made absolutely no apologies for their absolute contempt for public education
Right.
for the past decade, whether it's vouchers, whether it's COVID, whether it's dangling a carrot in front of teachers and teachers unions. And by the way, and I'm not dogging teachers unions at all, but I hope they get a little more involved in 2022 and 2024 than they have been in the past couple of years. Matt, you've run twice, I've run once. It's hard to get a meeting with the teachers union anymore. And we're the ones running, trying to give them raises, trying to protect their jobs, but they're so afraid of the Republican Party. I hope they realize at this point, it doesn't matter what they do.
Right.
I know that sounds cynical, and I know that sounds kind of rude, but at the end of the day, like I said, they've dangled a carrot in front of them for years. We're gonna. When I ran, it was, I say my opponent, our opponent. Because we ran against the same guy.
Right.
Well, he's gonna stand up for us when it comes to testing. Okay, great. That's great. What else has he done for you? At the end of the day, it's not going to matter whether they're testing or not when all of our education dollars are going to end up, if they have their way, are going to end up going to public or to private schools. And all that does. Because here's the thing, and I'm going to get off on a rant on vouchers here, and I'm sorry.
Please do.
The thing about vouchers is, and I've got nothing against private school. I say it all the time. I've got nothing against private school. My daughter's in private school. I absolutely have nothing against them. but I don't expect my neighbors to pay for it. You know,
Right.
at the end of the day, we already have an underfunded school system. And here's where we talk about vouchers a lot, but the conversation we're not having is that if we were properly funded, if education was properly funded, vouchers wouldn't be an issue. I would have no trouble with school choice. That's not the problem. That's the battlefield we've been fighting on. That's not it, though. That's not the real issue. The real issue is that we're already underfunded. The vouchers that they were going to give is still not enough to cover most private education. So it's still going to benefit the middle and upper class. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's just going to be another handout for folks who don't need it. And it's going to be taking more away from the folks who really do. So,
Right.
you know, they have just shown time and time again that they don't care about public education. They hate public education. And, you know, I don't know what it's going to take. I've been frustrated since November, and I know it was a good November for Democrats as a whole, but on a state level, it was awful. I mean, we got it handed to us in every way possible, and I become more and more frustrated as I look at the folks who go to the polls and vote against us when we're the ones who have their best interest at heart. Like I don't understand it. And it's, listen, and kudos to the Republican Party for making us the boogeyman. But at the end of the day, when are folks going to wake up and go, okay, they've had a supermajority for 10 years. You know, my kid's still undereducated. You know, a quarter of my neighbors roundabout are at or below the poverty line. You know, when are they going to start putting all this together and go, you know, the stuff, the vote that a lot of voters focus on doesn't affect their daily lives as much as they think it does. And it just drives me insane. Sorry, I got a little off course there, but you know, I don't know what
his agenda is to sell public education and subsidize rich children's private education.
Right.
I'm on the same board as you. School choice, that's fine, except don't tell us that we need to take money out of public education that's already underfunded and put it into private education. And with this new, you know, what happened in 2019, Bill Lee conspired with disgraced Speaker of the House, Glenn Cassida, to pass a voucher bill where they it's been said that they bribed legislators to do this. It's still being investigated by the TBI. This is separate than the current FBI investigation that's about dark money groups and about challenging Republicans inside the party. But my point is that whenever Bill Lee talks about education, we should all be concerned because he does not care. Just like you said, he is not interested in actually helping to fully fund our educational system, actually giving teachers the money they deserved. I mean, in a crisis, they can't even raise the money for teachers, and underfunding in the first place makes them have to dig into their own pockets for resources in the first place. Now we're in a pandemic, and we're expecting them to pull into their pockets for gear to combat COVID-19. So you know, and I know. You know, we know people on the city school board here in Murfreesboro. I think the Murfreesboro City School Board has handled this situation better than the county school board has. But there has to be some sort of compromise. You can't just say, all this or all that. And I think, some schools are dealing with this better. I don't have children of my own. I know that, your children maybe not in elementary school quite yet. But this is a big deal. You want to be concerned for the safety of your kids. You can't have them bringing back a virus. So, if they're going to go back, they need to be going back in a safe environment. If not, virtual is fine. And if local school districts decide to do this, why does the governor just come in and say, oh, we're going to punish you now for doing this, for thinking of the safety of your kids?
Well, it's the same note that they have played for 10 years. We want small government. We want local control as long as it fits our narrative. The second that it doesn't, guess what?
Right.
It's out the window. The state's going to take over.
The state's going to come in. Right.
But they'll be the first one when they do something wrong and the federal government comes in and says, no, you can't do that. They'll be the first one to scream about big government. And that drives me insane. Because at the core of me, I'm a small government guy. I really am. I don't believe that government has a role in every aspect of our life. But at the same time, I also recognize that there is a role to play, but it needs to be consistent across the board. They don't have that. They're not doing that. And
right.
it maddens me and frustrates me to no end. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I read recently that part of this new special education session that they did, one of the things that they were really concerned about were reading rates, getting the literacy rate up, which is a commendable thing to do. But they passed this thing where they wanted some sort of standards across the board, a phonics program. And most school districts already have this, so it's not a big deal, but they seem to be pointing to a certain vendor. They seem to be saying, oh, you have to do it with this person. And school districts that decide to opt into that will not, have to pay for it. But school systems that don't will have to pay for their phonics thing. So they're trying to steer a contract to their own personal vendor. Again, they're trying to make money off of public education. They are not concerned with improving public education at all. They're just trying to see how much money they can get at this. And right now, Jeff Yarborough and Republican Bo Watson from Chattanooga area are very concerned about this and bringing this up. But whether that changes anything, I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on this?
It ought to be a sign that something's wrong that a Republican and Democrat agree on anything in the state legislature at all.
Right.
But usually those are reserved for congratulating the Oakland football team or something like that. That's where you get the unanimous votes. Sometimes, we did have a group of legislators stand in the way of honoring a dead teenager last year, if you remember.
Right.
But, it goes back. It goes back to the local control. They want to dictate the way everything goes, but they don't. If we treated our elected officials the same way we do, people who worked in the private sector, we would have fired most of these folks already.
Yes.
There have been no results. There's been no improvement. We've seen, we get little bits and pieces of they'll talk about this over here. Hey, look at what we're doing right. But then all of this is going wrong. My favorite still, it was in 2016, 18, 20. It will be in 2022. It's on their greatest hits at this point, but it's like the Macarena in the 90s. They play it every hour, and it's we're the most fiscally responsible state, which is not true. We get quite a bit from the federal government.
Right.
We're one of the most dependent. But they love talking about the surplus. And at what point do we look at them and go, okay, it's great that we have all this money. That's my son, very excited by what I'm saying, if you hear that in the background. But at what point do we start saying, okay, that's great. We love it. We love that we have a rainy day fund. This is fantastic. But education is one of the worst in the nation. Healthcare is one of the worst in the nation. Our poverty rate is one of the worst in the nation. Our discrimination, legislative discrimination against not only folks of color, but the LGBTQ community and women is some of the worst in the country. At what point do we say it's raining and we have some stuff we need to fix? I get frustrated, not on a partisan level. I get frustrated on the level of I really care about Tennessee. I care about Tennesseans, and I see them, and I know you experienced this too when you ran, And when you've worked on other campaigns, my son really agreeing with me right now, and also very upset.
Yeah.
He, sorry, that threw me off. But I see these folks where I go, we can help you. We can do this. We can make Tennessee better. And like I say, I'm sure you've experienced it. I experienced it the second you say you're a Democrat, it's get off my porch. So at what point are we going to break through that divide and folks go, okay, let's hear them out? Because if it ever came to a battle of ideas and solutions, we're playing chess. They're not even playing checkers. I mean, they've got one marble on the ground they're rolling around. They're not playing anything, but they've won the culture war on us, and here we are.
Right. Well, I don't know if you saw that article that came out a while ago, that Education Law Center, which is this bipartisan group, they did an analysis of the different states and what funding was and gave them a grade. And Tennessee received an F. Tennessee received an F for not just for what they were investing, but the fact that actually money is there. It wasn't like it was a situation where there's nothing in the coffers, right? There's actually money there to do this, and we're behind. Let me see what it says in this article. I think it said $1.5 billion. It said that Tennessee students are behind as far as like funding for public education goes in Tennessee, and they're sitting on all kinds of money, and they want to lecture. Right now, they want to lecture Davidson County and Shelby County for mismanaging some funds. How long have they sat on this TANF money, this temporary assistance for needy families? How long, which is, I think, $750 million that was left on the federal table. And a part of it they want to use for this summer school project, which is part of their education special session thing that they did. But how long did they sit on the SNAP money? How long have they sat on this, Medicaid expansion money? We've literally lost billions of dollars in federal aid that could have helped prevent some rural hospitals closing across the state. So, when they say, that they are fiscally conservative and pro-life, it's a lie. It's all a lie. They are neither. They are none. They are not pro-life, and they are not fiscally conservative, because at the end of the day, they are using that money for something. And usually it's to shovel money to their friends, to shovel money to their vendor friends, their country club buddies, make sure that they get, Lee Company gets the tax incentives it needs. So,
but think about this for a minute.
Yeah.
Think about what better investment could we make in our future in education right now?
Right.
We lead the nation in minimum wage jobs. That's something that Bill Lee has bragged about. That's something that I see as a stain on our state.
Yes.
I really do.
Yes.
I mean, it's especially when a lot of parts of our state are not particularly cheap to live in, including Murfreesboro, where we are. Especially in the past decade, has gotten more and more expensive to live. But if you look at Nashville, you look at Chattanooga, you look at Knoxville, you look at Memphis, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And so what better way, instead of when we try to bring companies in, when we say, hey, move your operation here. Typically when we do that, it's manufacturing, it's distribution, it's some sort of logistics, which is great. Those are I work in that area myself. They're great industries, but why not aim higher?
Yeah.
Why not aim for tech companies? Why not bring more healthcare companies here? I mean, we already have a lot in Nashville, but why not try to bring those better paying jobs? And what better way to incentivize these companies, instead of saying, hey, you don't have to pay taxes for 10 years, than saying, you know what, you don't have to pay relocation expenses if you want to move here, because we've got the most educated workforce in the nation. Like that's what we need to be looking at. That's where we need to be focusing. And it's you kind of have to wonder if they just look at it and go, well, we don't necessarily want an educated workforce. We don't want a strong middle class anymore. And it's it's scary. I mean, it's really, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, it should not be as hard. Somebody should not have to go $60,000 in debt,
right,
to make $50,000 a year.
right.
I just, it doesn't try to, it doesn't make sense to me. So what better way to bring high paying jobs, to increase, you want to keep increasing home values, raise the median income, you'll see them shoot up. It's, if you really want a market-based solution, if you really want the economy to drive everything the way that Republicans say they want to,
right.
Educate your workforce, invest in your workforce, invest in your students.
Yeah.
It's that.
It's that easy. It's not complicated.
I mean, it's just, I don't see how they, like, how am I the bleeding heart liberal in this conversation? Like, how am I, like, I'm sitting here, I'm a numbers guy.
Mm-hmm.
I love economics. I love stuff. I mean, I work for an e-commerce company doing nothing but setting prices and doing stuff. Like, how am I the bleeding heart here? Like, right. I don't know. I don't understand how. I don't see where their vision of progress gets us. I hate to see where we're going to be in 10 years if we stay on the route we are, because we're going to have worse education. We're going to have worse healthcare.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to have low wages. And it's just a recipe for a really bad quality of life for way too many Tennesseans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they obviously don't care about the average Tennessean. And we can talk about this all day, but I do want to kind of touch on our state's response to the pandemic. From the beginning of the pandemic, our state's response has mirrored the federal response, which has been no big deal. They've been downplaying the whole thing until it's right in their face and they can't downplay it anymore. But they still are picking and choosing what they're, going after as far as the pandemic, when it comes to education and making sure they have those federal dollars. They're definitely, recognizing the pandemic. But when you're talking about unemployment, or you're talking about some of these other issues that the pandemic brings that maybe aren't so obvious, the state legislature has been just completely ineffective. They, sitting on their hands at best. But recently, we have, I think a lot of people have been very hopeful. I actually talked to my mom today, and she was very hopeful, and I had to give her the bad news that the vaccines really aren't coming like we thought they were. Recently, the news of the vaccine has excited people. Vaccines are actually getting into some people's arms, some frontline healthcare workers, some folks who are older, who are in that phase. But Tennessee does not have a good distribution network. Some people have noted that there's a lot of people in Memphis who did not get those vaccines. So there is a question of how they're equally distributing these vaccines. But on top of that, Tennessee thought that they had 400,000 vaccines coming to them from the federal government. But thanks to President-elect Trump, that's not happening at all. And of course, they support him. They support the insurrection. They're seditionist traitors. And they still don't recognize Joe Biden as their president. But they will accept that money when it comes. They are eyeing the federal money that's going to come. But I just want to kind of touch on this about the vaccine distribution, because a lot of people thought this was going to come a lot sooner. February, March, people like you and me could actually get the vaccine. And now we're looking at, maybe Thanksgiving. So that is unacceptable for a lot of reasons. And on top of that, the distribution has been all over the place. It's been unfair for some people. Other people, it's been a confusing process. Some of the people who are vulnerable, who need to get the vaccine, maybe they're not able to navigate the state website. And that's okay. I mean, I think I heard something like 60% of people who are 75 and older do not use the internet at all. So how are we helping those folks? And, they're the most vulnerable. And so are people in the nursing homes and people in a prison system. Are we prioritizing any of this stuff? If not, we're in trouble because, we think we're shut down now. How about 3 more years of this stuff if we don't get on the ball? I'm hopeful that this new presidential administration that's only a week old is going to get on the ball for this. But of course, we have other issues like people in our neighborhood taking this seriously or not. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Well, the first thing that has to happen is listen, Biden is, I do not envy Biden one bit. This was a terrible, terrible, terrible thing that he walked into. But whether or not it's his fault, he's got to own it. The Defense Production Act, he's talked a lot about it. He may have, I believe, and he's announced he's going to use it. I don't know where we are in that, but that needs to go just beyond PPE. That needs to go just beyond stuff for hospitals. That needs to go into, if you're able to make a vaccine, if you have the laboratory for it, I don't care if you're Pfizer, if you're Merck, which I use that because I heard it today. Merck is going to start producing that for Pfizer or Moderna. There are a ton of these. We've got to. I mean, we need to attack this as quickly as possible. That's the only way, we're going to stop. The number one concern is we got to stop losing people. We've got to save lives.
Right.
We've already lost over 400,000.
Right. Unacceptable number.
Right. We've got to stop. That's number one. Number two, we do need to get schools open back up. We do need to get kids in class because there's an educational impact, but there's an economic impact to that too.
Right.
Women have left the workforce in droves because they didn't have childcare.
Yep.
So, that's put a pinch on families. That's put a pinch on their own careers. But three, we do need the economy to open back up. And, now to me, the way you do that is from a bottom up approach, keep the stimuluses or stimuli coming.
Yeah.
But, and let, you want a free market solution. Let's roll, and this is, I'm breaking off again. When Andrew Yang first started talking about UBI, I was like, because I've got it. Matt, you know me. I've got a little bit of a conservative streak too. I was raised that way. I'm recovering. I'm doing my best. But, I thought, I don't know. I don't think that's going to work. And the more I read into it, the more I was like, holy crap, we could explode the economy if we this would be huge. And so, so take that approach to this over the next 6 months. Say, these things are covered. Make sure people aren't getting evicted because we don't want a homelessness crisis. You and I both know once you get to that point, once you get in that hole, it's hard to climb out of.
Right.
So let's avoid that. There's so many things that we have to do, but we have to basically, shoot 6 targets with one shot. And that's what the Biden administration has to do. And it's where the state needs to put its pride away and say, okay, federal government, we're going to please, Governor Lee, do not politicize this. Do not politicize. Just because it's Biden's idea, please don't do it. Don't say we're not going to do that out of spite. We've seen what that does with healthcare, with Obamacare in this state. Please don't do that when there is a deadly virus actively running its way through the country, through the state, through the counties, through the cities, through the towns. So we've got there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
There's more work than I don't even know. It's one of those where if when I was a bachelor, I would walk into my apartment and look at my room and go, I don't even know where to start because there was just stuff everywhere. That's how I imagine the Biden administration felt walking into the White House that first day. Just going, what do we do? God bless them. But
yeah, well, I am optimistic. The first day he was signing those EOs. So they came to work. They started the second they could. That is very commendable. You're right, though. I mean, it's one of those situations where I wouldn't necessarily want to be the man right now because he's got a lot on his plate. He's got a lot to manage. And, we also still have these people who are working against us. Let's be honest about this. The Republicans are not good faith actors. They don't want to negotiate with us. They don't want to work on a bipartisan thing. And whenever the Democrats try to work with them and get burnt and say, we're going to do it on our own, they scream and cry about bipartisanship. But they're not interested in doing that. And of course, what happened as soon as Joe Biden was inaugurated president? All these Republicans were screaming and holler about the economy and about how much of a bad job he's done. Hasn't even been there a week when the worst jobs president ever, period, is Donald Trump.
Right. The numbers don't lie.
Right. And half of that is just him bungling this coronavirus response. So anyway, we could literally talk about this all day. And it is a huge problem. But again, I'm optimistic about our leadership. I'm optimistic about these new senators, and I'm optimistic about these new leadership that's coming into the national party and to the state party. Speaking of which, we are being joined by a friend of ours, special guest. Can you guess who it is? It's Brandon Thomas. Brandon.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Brandon.
I'm good. How you doing?
Long time no see, Justin. How's the little one?
Wild.
You got two.
I was about to say, yeah. Well, the one is almost 8, and she behaves like her mother, so she's wonderful. But
okay,
the little one is going through terrible twos and behaves just like his father. So
yeah.
So our doctor said because Ezra's about to be 3 in March, and she was like, "Oh, you have a 3-nager." So it's not even 2. Now we skipped terrible 2s. We have a 3-nager.
It's an adventure. Parenthood is an adventure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But yeah, I heard you talking about the president, and what's really interesting is Trump never got above 50% in approval rating, and Joe Biden's already at like 53. So it's night and day.
No, that's a good point. And I think he's doing a good job with what he's handed right now. I'm expecting a lot more, though, but I think our Congress is working well together. I did see, Mitch McConnell is still threatening about the filibuster, and Chuck Schumer said, that this is not, we're not going to kowtow to this demand. And, so far the sky hasn't fallen. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by what they can do in Congress.
Do you think the filibuster is going to go bye-bye?
I don't know about that, but
I don't think so. I think maybe they'll get rid of certain stuff, because they've chipped away at it. So it used to be like you had to have a filibuster for certain things. Now you don't, like for Supreme Court justices and stuff like that. So they'll probably chip away. Like if we want a Green New Deal, they'll probably say you can't filibuster environmental issues or something like that. And yeah, I think the filibuster is going to be here for a while.
I wish it wouldn't. I really, and I know that sounds terrible. But here's the thing: it's useless anyway because just about anything you want to pass, you can pass through budget reconciliation. Mm-hmm. So, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, apparently the House used to have a filibuster, so there is, I guess, precedent, if you will, for getting rid of it completely because the House doesn't have a filibuster now; it's simple majority. So.
I mean, it would make more sense because the way the way our Senate is set up is so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When Wyoming has as many senators as California,
why my bank account set up?
I'm not in love with the filibuster, and I'm very much I like order and I like traditions, and I really, as long as they work, I'm all for it. I'm not for whoever's in power just changing everything at all willy nilly. But
right,
man. Like if we're gonna get anything done, you're gonna have.
It's almost like what's the point of elections if you have the party that lost still be able to control
Right.
like, a significant part of the agenda.
Well, and as we look at it as Democrats too, if the past is John McCain and Mitt Romney and the future is Josh Hawley, I don't want a filibuster. I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So I was not a fan of Mitt Romney when he ran against Obama. He is my new favorite Republican right now.
Mhm.
I love him. He's invited to dinner anytime he wants to. I admire John McCain.
Well, and he walked in a Black Lives Matter protest. Did y'all see that during the
yes,
summer?
I'm like,
Yeah. Because his dad was a civil rights, person, lawyer or something. Yeah. So like that's in his blood. It's one of those weird things. You're like, oh, I didn't expect that.
And I gotta say, the Netflix documentary on him made me a little bit soft on him too, because
I never watched that. It's been in my queue the day it came out. I have never. I don't like secondhand embarrassment.
Oh, Mitt,
you thought you were really going to win.
Hey, you kind of see though he's a decent man. He's a lot different than a lot of. Than particularly one of our senators.
Both of them.
Well, one's a little worse, but
just slightly.
Yeah, she's a nightmare. I'm not gonna name names. I don't know. I just the filibuster. I think needs to go, but I don't know. I see that being a long. I agree with Brandon. I think it's a great idea, but I think in a practical sense, it's going to be hard to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got 50 senators now, and with Kamala Harris, it's 51 right there. So I mean, we shouldn't have to, even have to go through
weeks of something Joe Manchin will vote against. I mean, this is
right.
We're
now the majority party, we should be able to move certain legislation, and the fact that that's even a question is concerning. But like we've been talking about, we're in the midst of several crises, and it's not easy to see what the light at the end of the tunnel is. I think a lot of people were excited that the vaccines were coming out. Now it's going to take a lot longer for these vaccines to come out. And whose fault is that? That's because of the failed federal response. That's because of the failed state response.
It really puts into question what is federalism and the role of government, and should the states be responsible for a pandemic level event ever?
Right.
A lot of questions.
Well, if you work backwards, if Trump called himself a wartime president because of this, would you send individual states to war? Would you say, all right, individual National Guards, y'all head on over to do your own thing. We'll see you over there.
We got 50 different generals.
Right.
That's part of the problem right now is we got 50 different COVID responses, and vaccine distribution plans, and none of it is working in conjunction with the other. So that's a huge, huge problem. And, you were just hinting about our senators, Bill Hagerty and Marsha Blackburn. Luckily, they did not vote against the certification of the votes, even though their lives were threatened as well. And they wholeheartedly support the insurrection, and they wholeheartedly support the treasonous outgoing president. But not only them, our governor, Bill Lee, and all of our leadership here in Rutherford County supports that. And that's very concerning because at the end of the day, Trump doesn't care about anybody else but himself. Mm-hmm. And if our leaders don't care about anything else but what he cares about, they definitely don't care about what the average Tennessean is going through. So I want everyone to remember that, because this is not over by a long shot. Election year is next year. It's coming up again. All these House seats are going to be up again.
Can we just skip one? Can we just can we just hold it together for 4 years? Do we have to? Can we just roll them all together 4 years from now? I'm tired of I love politics, and I'm tired of elections.
I hear you. I understand that. But 22 is going to be here whether we want it to or not. And Governor Bill Lee is going to be on the ticket. Hopefully, we've got a good candidate to go against him because he is a failed governor. He is a terrible, terrible governor. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Brandon, is we've got new state leadership. Hendrell Remus is the new chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party. And he's a great guy, and I think he's going to do a great job in that role. But we also have some new leaders on the board, including Brandon Thomas, who's VP of Middle Tennessee. So you want to tell us a little bit about that? Tell us a little bit about what's going on. I know you can't tell us too many plans, and it's only been,
I think I'm waiting for orders from our new chair. I know they've been really hectic. Getting interview requests. Obviously, this is a really big change. He's our first Black chair here in the state of Tennessee. So I'm not trying to get into anything yet. I'm here, and I have my toddler who wants to say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hey,
I'm
Ezra.
gonna get in here.
Yeah. Hey, Ma.
Hey.
Welcome.
That's his home.
Oh my God. My God. Hey, Ma.
And say hi to Justin.
Hi, Justin.
Hey, Ezra. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. You don't remember? You've met Justin before.
I was at school because I didn't want to be at. Because I didn't want to be at. And then I didn't want to play at Legos at school.
Very good.
Really?
Well, Ezra, how do you feel about the filibuster? Let's get another voice in here. Yeah, exactly.
Play with my friends, and then I didn't play with anybody else. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to
So he
play.
was out of school for 2 weeks because
I was out of school for 2 weeks.
they had another COVID scare at school, and the teacher got tested positive. So today was his first day back,
It's
and
like
apparently he cried for 2 hours because he was with me for the 2 weeks. So yeah, he didn't.
my one teacher got sick.
Yeah, one of his teachers got sick.
Hey, Ma. Hey, Ma. My
Hey.
teacher got sick because hey, Ma. My dad. Hey, brother. Oh.
Okay, baby. Let's,
You
you want to say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ezra.
Hey.
I'm going to still talk to them.
No, Brandon, me here.
I know he-
Well, I'm glad Ezra's doing good. I'm glad Ezra's healthy.
Yeah, he is a handful. He's always he's asking why. He's in the why phase with everything. Talks your ear off. Can't get a word in edgewise.
He's already running for president of the daycare.
I
isn't
think
he?
so. I think so.
Yeah.
And when I was running, he even now still says, "I'm running for state house." He'll go sit at the
Yes.
chair I'd always sit at and make calls or whatever. I'm running for state house. And he remembers you, Matt, and he was like, "I'm running for state house, Matt," or something. He would say something.
Oh, that's-
Yeah, he's a handful. He's a handful.
Yeah. A good one. So anyway, we were talking a little bit about the state party. I don't know where we're at with all
Well,
that.
yeah. I had got asked to run for this seat, and I was like, okay, what does it entail? And so once again, I got told it was kind of like you told me, Matt. You're coordinating, meeting people across the state, and I'm assuming that's probably going to change now that we have a new chair. So I'm just really waiting to see what they're thinking. I should be doing to help the party at this point. So, I'm really excited. I'm anxious that we have a new chair. It's kind of, like one of those things where you know what you have. It may not be great, but at least you know. And so now we're in new territory where it's like, okay, I wish the best. I hope we can really flip some seats. I think we're going to have to be playing a local game for a while. Tennessee, I think, we have school board races coming up. I think specifically in our county, we have some not so great folks on the school board, county school board, that we
Right.
could knock them out in Laverne specifically.
Right. Yeah.
So like, so like that shouldn't be too difficult. But
County
what happens if they're threatened? Then the Republican Party's probably gonna step in and throw some money. So
Right.
we got to be ready for that too.
Right.
Right.
Well, and that's, I mean, that is the scary thing about these small offices is you think, oh, it's not going to be anything. It's because it's usually the same folks that have been on there, be it the county school board, county commission. They've been on there. Those are like Supreme Court justices. It's a lifetime appointment.
It's wild to see like so and so has been on the school board for 30 years, and it's like
Right.
what.
It's you want to talk about term limits. That's where we need to start.
Right.
No,
No,
we have school board members who started when they had children in school and now have great grandchildren in school. So, but yeah, that is the scary thing about them is the GOP will step up and go wild. I mean, that was their approach. That was their game plan. When Democrats had control of the legislature here was, I forget what they called it, Operation. We had something. Ezra has something to add. But we've got to basically replicate that approach that they took and go out.
Yeah. No, I mean, they just poured money into these races. And that was their approach for even a primary against Rick Tillis, which they're under investigation for. If you don't know the story, pretty much to sum it up, created a dark money group disguised as they created an illegal dark money group disguised as a legal dark money group to hurt a primary, to hurt a city legislature.
Yeah.
And now the TBI is investigating it.
Yeah.
It looks like they found something. I mean, Glenn Cassidy's office was raided. A couple other people's offices were raided. Cawthorn.
Maybe they'll find those 10,000 extra votes that me and you needed to win.
They're probably stashed there somewhere. No, but when it comes to politics, we sit here and we try to craft a message that penetrates with voters, and they do not care about governing. They do not about policy, do not care about helping people. They care about winning. They care about retaining power. They care about shoveling money or contract to their buddies, to their friends, and it's really corrupt and it's really gross. It's happening in broad daylight. But I am hopeful for a lot of reasons, and I think a lot of people are becoming educated on this and watching what their legislators do. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you a little bit, Brandon. What were you going to say?
No. I think that just kind of comes down to, the big thing, gerrymandering. That's going to be coming up. When you have a party that I think, even with us, look, we were in the majority. They said since the Civil War, but that's not the Democratic Party I probably would have been a part of. Let's be real here.
Right.
Let's be real. When one party I think has a majority control, I think that's always a problem when you don't have that competition of keeping people. It's accountability, right? There's nobody to hold them accountable because the power structure is leaned in their direction so much. That's why I really don't think that anything's going to happen with Ketron. He's going to somehow figure out how to run again. Maybe he'll get a big old loan from somebody to pay off his campaign debts, and he's going to run again. It's because there's no accountability.
I know some folks who are already writing his political obituary, and I would say not so fast. I mean, Kelsey Ketron got hit with 71 indictments. And at the end of the day, she got a little slap on the wrist. I think it was 2 years probation or something like that for insurance fraud. If this was anybody else, would have had the book thrown at them and served some actual prison time. So don't count these people out so fast. They've got a finger in every pie, and they know how to get out of some stuff. But again, I am hopeful, and we've got some new leadership and some new positions. And I think we've just got a stronger state party all around. I remember You know, there was a state party chairs race a couple of years ago, and the you know, thinking about what happened then and what happened now recently, I just see a more engaged state executive committee who have been around for a little bit, who have been around different elections and are determined to do something different and push the envelope. And now we've seen what can happen in the South with what's happening in Georgia. And, you know, hey, if it happened in Georgia, it can happen in North Carolina, it could happen in Texas, it could happen in Tennessee. So, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. But I am very hopeful. But yeah, you have anything else you want to share about the state party or anything about
Yeah, you know, I will say we did do, because I actually voted for chair 2 years ago, too. That was my first time. And there was no process. It was kind of a melee free-for-all. And this time, the EC or the EC didn't pay some outside. Okay, so how we did it, you know, I think it's questionable. But some folks on the EC got an outside PAC to pay for an HR person to set up some structure on how to pick the next chair. And I think one of the things that was really effective was that, you know, basically give out a questionnaire to everybody. Okay, let's see your resume. Okay, now we're going to do an interview process, and also we're going to ask questions, and we'll ask for follow-up questions. I wish we could release them because I know I've seen some chatter from people that lost that they're not too happy about that. And, you know, I think if people saw what their answers were on their questionnaire, they would understand, oh, okay, I wouldn't have picked that person either. So, you know, like, I think that was very revealing. You know, I was actually kind of against it, but I think hey, you know, you're not always right. And, you know, I'll say I think that's something that we need to keep. I think since we had so many people, it was a little overwhelming because the HR person even had like a little sheet to like grade people on their specific answers. And then so once you did everything, you can kind of compare what you gave each person as a grade, you know, for that specific answer. And so that was a little overwhelming when we had like, what, you know, 7 or 8 people. That was a lot. So I think if it was 3 or 4, that'd be a lot more manageable. But yeah, I think that's a process that we need to keep going on forward. You know, I think the EC itself needs to assert more power as well. I think one thing that is a little troubling is the chair will hire people, you know, Hendra will be able to hire people, but the EC has no input on it really. Yeah. Right. You know, so we're not like the Senate where we're confirming, right? Yeah. You know, like maybe we need to do that kind of structure. So, and I think that was the problem in the past. You know, because you get the people you like, and then you have a particular work culture. And so that, you know, if you ran in 16, Justin ran in 16, same work culture in 16 than it was in 2020. I can guarantee you that. So, so I think, you know, stuff like that, I think generally the structure even with the EC needs to change, and hopefully Hendra can get that done.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And that's a great idea too. I mean, that was always, and Brandon, well, Matt, you too, you were around for 16 and some of the fits I threw at the TNDP and at both around and directly towards them. You know, there wasn't any accountability. I mean, there was nothing. There was nothing there. You'd say, "Hey, we really need this. We're on an island here in Rutherford County, and you're 35 minutes away. Could you come help us out?" And you know, at a certain point, I quit getting phone calls returned. So I think that would be great to have that. I mean, I think I would love to see that, because I don't know much about Hendrell at all. I was glad to see somebody that wasn't part of the same machine that has been there
right
for a decade in some you know form or fashion. Nothing against anybody, but it was time for a change. The results speak for themselves. So I really hope that, you know, that he can. I love that he's young. I love that he comes from a background that's different than anybody who's ever had it. I love that he's African American, and I love that he's going to bring that perspective that we so desperately need.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he does. Really
Yeah.
excited to see what he does.
Me too. Me too.
And there were some other great candidates, Kate Craig out of Washington County. She's a friend of ours. She did a great job. I think she ran a great campaign. Robin
She
Kimbrough.
ran a campaign, just not saying nobody else did, but every time I, posted on Facebook, digitally at least, like she had her people,
Right.
respond back. I mean that we can't lose that for sure. Like she needs to be
Right.
a part of something,
Yes.
definitely.
Mhm.
Because we're still in the time of COVID. If we have somebody like her that knows how to do virtual stuff like that, let's get her in the fold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, Robin Kimbrough Hayes, she's another friend of ours. London Lamar, she was in it for a little bit and she dropped out to focus on legislative stuff. And I'm okay with that, even though I think she would have made a great chair. She is a great legislator, and I'm glad that she is fighting for the people of Tennessee. So we need more active legislators like that. But it's going to be an interesting couple of years. But 22 is right around the corner, so we've got some brand new elections, and then 24 is not too far behind that. And I think the fear for a lot of Democrats in red states is that 22 isn't necessarily going to be a bounce back for them, or 24 isn't necessarily going to be a bounce back for them. But I'm really encouraged. I'm really optimistic. I see new leadership. I see people becoming more engaged, more informed. And honestly, I think the Republicans have gone too far with a lot of things, including the failed insurrection, the failed coup attempt that they did. It's treasonous. Let's just be fair. Let's just be real about this. And I was glad to see, earlier this week or, last week, a zip tie guy, as he's been called on the internet, from Nashville. The judge out of Tennessee said some very interesting things and was, trying to release him on bail. And what did he say? Well, I'm not sure what his intentions were. And then he said something like, well, I think he's very pro-police, And the federal court, I think Monday was like,
absolutely not. Yeah.
So,
You don't break into the Capitol, disregard when the police are saying, please leave. You're, and they're outnumbered, so they're not going to, page you or anything. I don't think that's pro-police, like this, like, let's get real. This, Blue Lives Matter was never about police officers. Like, I think that.
I was about to say, man, what a gut punch for white supremacists the past few months, realizing that, like, one of my favorite, and I mean, I'm not a fan of pornography, but I watch this a lot, is, I believe it was in Portland, some Proud Boys were getting run off by cops, and they were just losing their mind. We've always had your back, and we've always just dying. I was like, thank God. Good.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point. How dare they call themselves pro-police when literally one of them beat a police officer to death with an American flag.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much more clear than that they do not have police officers, in mind when they're doing any of this stuff. And really, they've been, I feel sorry for these people. They've been beefed up on this. They've been riled up on these conspiracy theories that's straight from the president's mouth.
Yeah.
And he encouraged
former
them there. I'm so sorry. Former president. The president unelect. Who is like, again, he's all about himself. And these people have sold them souls to the devil. And for power, for political power. And where's it going to get them? When Bill Lee says, oh, mass mandates don't work, he's not thinking about the people of Tennessee. He's thinking about his primary in 22.
Yeah.
He's thinking about the people that are going to vote for him or vote against him. That's all he's thinking about.
Yeah.
And so we're not.
And that's the problem too, because he doesn't have to think about a general, because, hopefully somebody steps up, but they're going to have a money deficit We're rebuilding our party basically, and we haven't done what we needed to do in Rutherford County and in other places that to shore up those margins. They may not win Rutherford County, but if they can come close, then Davidson and Shelby can bring it home. We'd have a new governor basically. We got a lot of organizing to do, so maybe that's on ourselves. Maybe that's what we need to do. But so he's just playing to his base because that's what he has to do. I will say he didn't say masks didn't work. He thinks masks are effective, but people who are already wearing them are already wearing them, so there shouldn't be a mandate. That's what he was saying. He's like, people that don't want to wear them aren't going to wear them, so why give a mandate? But I think people will. The governor of my state said I need to wear a mask. Sure, I'll put it cover my lips up and that's it, or have it hanging from my ear. I'm wearing my mask. So that's what they will do. At least that's a start.
Right. Well, it's ridiculous to say I'm not going to do a statewide mask mandate because I don't believe the mask mandates work. But we'll allow county mayors to do it, and we'll also give, I don't know how much it was, $7 million for an ad campaign. I was actually in the car today and I heard a commercial. I meant to say this earlier. I heard a commercial about vaccine distributions, and the voice goes, "Tennessee, vaccines are here." And I was like, oh, wow, how embarrassing for them. They really thought they were going to come. But yeah, they thought that the federal government had 400,000 vaccines stashed away for them. And guess what? They did not, because the president, former president, the president-elect, does not care about anybody but himself. Yeah. So it's so blatant and it's so clear to us, and it's so sad that people have been brainwashed. But I am encouraged because I feel like they've done a lot of damage to themselves. I think they've done a lot of damage to their brand, and they have sold themselves to the devil. And I think the Democrats are only going to get stronger. And we've got some new leaders getting involved. And, just like Stacey Abrams, she was a state rep, and then she became chair, or I think they call it leader down there. She became the Democratic Party leader in Georgia. That was 11 years ago. Then she ran for governor, and I'm hearing from the grapevine that in 22 she's going to run for governor again, and it's going to be Raphael Warnock's going to be up, and it's going to be a Warnock-Abrams ticket. That's going to be a big, big, big deal for Georgia. But guess what state's right next to Georgia? Tennessee. So there's opportunity here in Tennessee. There's potential here in Tennessee. I know I'm not completely delusional, maybe just a little bit, but.
Well, no, the data suggests that we're inching closer. Right. I think what bummed us out this cycle is, okay, so we did our calculated our win number and everything, and we hit it, but 25% more people came out that we didn't anticipate to come out, and so that's that. We somehow Trump created more voters. And so will those people come out in 22? That's going to be the real big question in 2024 when he's not going to be on the ballot. So
everybody is passionate about Governor Bill Lee and Scott DesJarlais like they are.
Yeah.
You think not?
So we may surprise ourselves and flip some seats simply because
I'm going to tell you, the calculation that we all got wrong, all three of us, because I was working on Matt's campaign. I was working on another campaign out of Hickman County. We all thought that Trump had reached his ceiling in 2016. He had not gained any new voters. And when we saw these early vote numbers coming in, I mean, we've all been in enough campaigns, whether running or working on them, volunteering, whatever, where those last 2 or 3 weeks, you may have 2 months ago thought there's no chance in hell you're going to win, but those last 2 or 3 weeks, and I think it's just sheer exhaustion, you go, This could happen. I remember in 2016, I had no shot at winning. I knew that. But I'm gonna tell you, I woke up election day going, I'm gonna be a state representative at the end.
Yeah.
You know, like I am gonna be a state representative. Look at
I
me.
actually wasn't. I was like, I don't know about this. You know, in 20, I was like, there's a lot of momentum. I got to speak to Hillary Clinton, Pete Buttigieg, you know, but I was still very like, I don't know about that. I feel like because they were polling like every 3 weeks, and I was getting a phone call from a pollster. You know, they asked you the question, "Are you involved in any campaigns?" Of course, I said no because the campaign didn't pay me to run. So you know, I took the little survey, and they were tracking, and so that told me, oh, they knew how many votes they needed. You know, every time they got some more data, and we didn't do that. The state party, well, it wasn't the state party, it was an outside organization. The state party bought the data. They just did one online poll that, you know, showed all the hot races, every candidate basically underwater. And they didn't do any follow-up polling. They based how they would want to fund, like our race, the state caucus only gave us like $20,000 in mail. They're not directly, because I would have used it in other places in mail. And, you know, they didn't even ask like, hey, where do you think your deficits are? Anything like that. So, you know, not only are we dealing with the state party that needs to be rebuilt, we're dealing with the caucus that needs to be rebuilt. And, you know, so part of me too, Matt's like, you know, London needs to stay in the caucus because there's a lot of work to do there as well, especially when it comes to allocating funds. Like we've got to do some high quality polls too. I know polling is getting a little bit more loosey goosey, but you know, it's still a tool that we can use. And for us to not be doing phone polls like the Republicans do, and do them frequently to see, because we got suggested to do particular messaging, but we had no idea if the messaging was working because we had no follow-up poll.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
But that's the thing. Like it takes so much in these competitive seats, like both of y'all's were. Frankly, I mean, if you looked at 2018 data, you sat here and went, okay, you know, Brandon's is very flippable. Matt's is within the realm of possibility. Like if we had those kind of resources to where we could try this messaging out, where if, you know, for as an example for Matt, if we could have hit his opponent a little bit harder on his involvement in the landfill and taking money from Republic. And if that resonated, we would know we need to double down on that. We need to triple down on that. We need to get mail. We need to get radio. We need to, you know, it's going to take a lot of time and it's going to take a lot of money, but it's money that doesn't need to be spent the way money usually gets spent, the way that the party has told us money needs to get spent. Because we've all sat in those meetings where they said, you know, you need to raise $150,000, and you start going, how? Yeah. Hey, how am I going to raise it? But how am I going to spend that much money? And then you get into it. Okay, I could, you know, I was, my campaign manager Chloe notoriously talked me out of buying a T-shirt candidate before a parade one time. But so I mean, you can
find ways. You can find ways to spend money on a campaign.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just we're going to have to get. Our party is younger. Our party is more technologically inclined in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
we're going to have to learn how to use that, and we're going to have to do what the Republicans did this year and find new voters. Because, like I said, I mean, I really thought in 2016 Trump hit the ceiling. I thought if you voted for him in 2016, you're going to show back up for him. But it was hard for me, and I don't want to offend anyone, but particularly white folks under 40. Who I sat here and thought, as those numbers were coming in every day for early voting, I was like, okay, this is going to trend towards us, and it totally didn't. Totally did. Like
I saw. Not at all. I was worried when we were still calling people, and you know, you can see the age of people, and it was a lot of people under like 35 that hadn't voted. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, you know, like these, you know, these uninterested, you know, 20, 30 somethings. So I was like, okay. So we have a problem there too. Like, you know, we could win, but we got to get those under 35s out voting, figure out what in the world they're interested in. Some they're going to be like, oh, I don't really know. They probably got registered at school or when they got their driver's license, right? And so haven't even thought about politics. But yeah, that's going to be a challenge.
Well, again, I'm encouraged because not only has our coalition grown, but these organizations have grown as well. That we,
Yes.
state party, there's the House caucus and the Senate caucus, but there's also Indivisible. There's also
we had a lot of support from local groups. I found out there was a group that was supporting us. I didn't know till after the election. So that is a lot of hope right there. As a campaign, you're doing what you can do, but it's really great to know there's other people around you. You may not know until the very end that, oh, this organization spent some money to make some phone calls for you or whatever.
Right. Well, that's a good point. And what I wanted to say about that is that, we after the very successful wins in Georgia, we heard a lot of people say, where's Stacey Abrams in Tennessee? We need a Stacey Abrams in Tennessee. Well, Stacey Abrams already exists in Tennessee. Her name is, Daquila Johnson, or Charlene, what's her name? Charlene Oliver, who of the Equity Alliance that has registered thousands of Black voters. That is a huge, huge deal. Or your friend, who does Stand Up Nashville. What's her name, Brandon?
Oh, yeah.
Odessa.
I had a blank.
I was like her. Odessa. I forgot her name. I forgot her last name too.
Odessa Kelly. Yeah.
Odessa Kelly. That's it. Yeah. But she's really smart and she's doing great things up there. Gideon's Army, which I worked with years ago. They were instrumental during those tornadoes that happened last year in East and North Nashville. They went in there and told people, don't sell your homes. You can keep your homes. We can help you. And that's a big deal because, the developers were going to go in there and really take advantage of folks during a time of crisis. So there are those organizations here already, but it takes folks like me to get behind them. It's not enough to say we need Stacey Abrams. We need to get Stacey Abrams back. We need to be right there with Stacey Abrams, or the Equity Alliance, Stand Up Nashville, Gideon's Army, Indivisible, all these different organizations that are doing different things in Tennessee. I'm encouraged by the whole thing because I've been involved in local state politics for about 6-7 years now, and I have seen a huge change, and I know y'all have too.
Absolutely. We just got to do the work, So
right.
But guys, it's getting late. I got a little toddler that Michael's trying. He's trying his hardest to block the door. It's like playing football as a toddler. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to bounce. But we can see Brandon hours. Good seeing you too.
Yeah, we could. Thank you though for joining us today. Thank you for telling us about that. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to working with you.
All right. See y'all later.
See you, Brandon.
All right, have a good one. See you, brother. All right, Justin, I was going to wrap this up anyway, but you got anything else you want to take us out on?
Yeah, a couple things actually.
Yeah.
So as I don't know how many people are watching this live or will watch it afterwards.
About 1,000, about 2,000.
About 1,000.
Yeah.
What we need to start doing is identifying candidates now. If you're remotely thinking about running, if you looked at 2020 and you said, you know what, I think I can do that. I think I can do it better. I think I would at least like to try. Start planning now. Do it now. You don't have to announce right now.
Right.
You don't have to put a website up. It's the biggest mistake I made when I ran in 2016 is I waited until the very last minute. I mean, I turned my petition in on the last day you could, and I picked it up a week before it was due. I was scrambling to get signatures. I had never run for office. I had never, I'd never worked on a campaign. I was just this idiot that decided he was tired of the state legislature being mean to gay people is what led me to run for office. That was pretty much the only message I had for a little while. But if I had started a year before, would I have won? Probably not, but I would have known what I was doing a lot better. I didn't really figure it out until after I had run, and I did my own autopsy on the campaign, and I kept coming back to I had a great campaign manager. I had great staff. Matt, you were one of them. I had great volunteers. I had these great people around me, and I realized the problem with the campaign was the candidate. So,
No. Not true.
But start working on it now. Start
Right.
identifying those folks in your circle that are going to help you. Start doing that work now, because it will be here where it's February 2021. You'll look up in a year and go, oh crap. I wish I was going to do it. I don't want to.
Right.
So, I mean, that's start doing that now.
Yeah.
If you don't want to run, start getting involved now. It doesn't have to be the county party. I know that there are a lot of, especially on the more progressive side of things, there are a lot of people put off by the Democratic Party on a local, state, and federal level, and I totally get it. Totally understand it. But get involved in something. You just named off a ton of organizations that you can get involved in. Start there.
Yeah.
Right now is the biggest mistake that I think we make as Democrats in this state is we treat off years like off years, and there are no off years.
Right.
We can rest when schools are funded, when Medicaid's expanded and then beyond.
Yes.
When organizations like the Tennessee Equality Project, which I'm proud to be involved with.
Yeah.
When they don't have to go to war every single year to protect the basic rights of the LGBTQ community. Like when we do all that, we can rest. But until then, and it's hard to do. I mean, I've had to fight myself. My wife just started back to college. She's getting her heart is so good. She has decided that in the middle of a pandemic, she wants to get her bachelor's of nursing.
Okay. She's
a better person than I am.
Yeah.
She definitely is the good one of the relationship. But it's hard for me because part of me just wants to go. I just want to forget about it for a year. But that's not how progress happens. That you can't take a break. So stay involved. Stay excited. Every time, we've had some good news in the past couple weeks, or in the past week. We've seen Biden sign some executive orders that, I mean, we're pretty progressive. He's going to have the most progressive and most diverse cabinet in the history once they're all installed in the history of this country. I mean, there are a lot of exciting things happening, but don't take that as everything's fine.
Right.
Get energized by that. Say, I want to see that in my state house. I don't want to just see it in the White House. I want to see it in Cordell Hull. I want to see, so that's the main thing I would say was if there's never a bad time to start getting involved.
Right. Absolutely. And, there's no rest for the wicked. There's definitely no rest for the people who are battling the wicked. And I did read today that Scott Simpicki, the representative out of Murray County, who you're familiar with, I know, is trying to introduce.
Yeah, District 64. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, about transgendered athletes that really has no place in state politics at all.
No.
But it's another attack on trans people in this state. And one thing I do want to add is that it is a process. Even if you think that you can't do this or that, there's still a role for you, whether it's, inside a party or inside an organization or inside a campaign. But for me personally, it was a slow crawl, I mean, first, it was a call from the Obama campaign in 2008. And then by 2012, I was running phone banks in Rutherford County. And then I ended up being an executive committee person in local Rutherford County Democratic Party. And then I ran for chair and won chair of the Rutherford County Democratic Party. Then I ran for State House, and I've done that twice. So, it was baby steps to get into it. So don't feel like you have to go 0 to 1,000 immediately. But one thing I do like to say is, one thing that got me interested in it was actually finding out who was representing me and who these people were in the state house and the state senate. And some of them are some real bozos. Okay. Mm-hmm. I know that's a technical term. They're real jokers up there, and they do not care about anything else but themselves. And we've seen it over and over and over again. And one of the things that influenced me to run were people like you, Justin. You influenced me to run. Seeing you go up there. No. I'm thinking about that time you did like I forgot what you called it. I think you called it like a question and answer thing. But you remember you did that thing at Cultivate Co-working?
Oh, yeah. Town hall.
Yeah. Oh, Town Hall. Yeah, that's what it was. I think it was like 3 hours. Like, you impressed the hell out of me that night. Like, I was like, damn, this guy really knows his stuff. And, people were asking you all kinds of questions. And it seemed like one of them was going to stump you, and they didn't. And it just made me feel like, damn, like we could have a legislator like this. We could have somebody with some common sense, somebody who's a little bit younger than the average age of a legislator in Tennessee is probably like 70 or something. We need some younger people to come in. We need some people who aren't about the status quo. They're about changing things. And so anyway, you influenced me quite a bit that night. I don't know if you know that, but I thought I'd just tell you that. And I appreciate all the support you've given my campaign. Quit saying you're sorry.
That's what it's all. And I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for me. I keep telling myself I'll never run again, but I still have that. I still have the want to. Not because I crave power, but because there are a lot of things in the state that really bother me. And I don't know. It won't be anytime soon. Definitely won't be in 2022. But I just, I don't know. I appreciate you saying that, because I just, the best thing I could do was when I ran, because I didn't have a whole lot of, and this could go to anybody thinking about it. I didn't have any connections. The first Democratic Party I came to was after I turned the petition in. Mm-hmm. I showed up and was like, "Hey, I'm your candidate." Yeah. It was. I didn't have a lot of connections, and so I just learned. I just studied. I just I looked at bills that had gone through in the past 10 years. I learned. I can at that time I could about tell you the poverty rate down to the zip code. I don't think I could now, but I just learned and listened. That was the best thing. I'll tell you, and I know I'm extending this far beyond what you want to.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
I'll tell you, the place I became a better candidate was the first Borough Pride. And we were set up there. We were a sponsor. We're so excited to be there. And I was so jazzed up that day. I woke up that morning just fired up, and I thought I had this little stump in my head. I was, the elevator pitch I just had down, and I made it about 30 minutes of giving that, and I just started shutting up, and I started listening. And I got questions that night about everything from, obviously, a lot of discrimination questions. I had a girl ask me about my thoughts on circumcision, which was weird. I didn't have it. That's the one I didn't have an answer for. That was the one where I was, I like, I don't know. But I just started listening, and I learned more that night about the issues of the folks who I was running to serve. And that's, if like I say, if you're there if you're right there on that verge going, I kind of want to run, I don't know what I would run for, start talking to your neighbors, start asking them.
Yeah.
Look at your own life. Look at your own neighborhood. You don't have to, to run for a state office, you don't have to know the GDP of the country. You don't have to know, everything on a federal level, but you better know your community.
Yep.
Start there. I don't know. I'm going to shut up. I've talked too long.
No, I mean that's a really good point, and I don't really have too much to add on that, except I love Borough Pride because, well, for lots of different reasons. But one, it's like liberal Bonnaroo to me. It's like here's all these people who are like kind of camped out by the courthouse who want to talk about liberal stuff and want to promote, gay, lesbian, transgender pride. I love it. It's a beautiful thing, and the fact that it's grown so much, it really shows that hey, there's people in this county that care. I know for some folks, you're blue in a red state, you're blue in a red county, and it feels like you're the only one. You're not alone. And I feel like, maybe Joe Biden's campaign has tapped into some of those people too. So yeah, so I'm excited, but like you said, there's no off years for us. We've got some work to do, and the state legislators will be back in session here in a couple of weeks, and they'll be up to all kinds of stuff, including being petty. The Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, is being petty right now to GloJo, to Representative Gloria Johnson, and that is an absolute despicable thing, because even if you disagree with somebody, you ought to treat them with respect. I don't care who they are. You treat them with respect. You treat them with dignity. That's one of the things I liked, day one for Joe Biden. He was, what do you call it? He was swearing in all these different people who were going to work for him via Zoom. And he said one thing, I don't know if you caught that, but he said, if you ever talk down to someone, if you ever treat anyone with disrespect, you're fired. You're out of here. There's no question about it. Everyone deserves dignity. And that means a lot to have a president not only have that policy and to actually enforce it, but to say that out loud for everyone to hear. It's a big deal. And so, hopefully this is the start of bringing decency back into politics, bringing some sort of compassion into policies that have just failed the people over the past, several decades. I mean, let's face it. Like you were saying earlier, wages have stayed stagnant, and the cost of living has exploded, whether it's education, housing, or healthcare, and the state and federal government have not kept up with that. But now we have a president who is ready to sign more compassionate bills, more progressive bills. It's a big deal, but it's not over. Just because we got these guys in, it's not going to be over. It's not going to happen overnight. We got to keep pushing, and we got to turn Tennessee blue. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Any other thoughts?
No. Thank you for having me. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah,
Enjoy
absolutely.
I'll come back in a couple of weeks. I've got I got a text from one of the organizers for speaking of the Tennessee Equality Project.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about the slate of hate as unfortunately has been known for years.
Right.
So I'd love to come on and talk about that.
Let's do it.
Or have him do it.
Yeah.
You probably know more than me. But
yeah, Chris Sanders.
Well, I actually heard from a guy named Luke. That was I don't know.
If Luke just got a new job with them. Yeah,
it's just a super. I call him kid because I'm old now, but
yeah,
very very smart young guy that is I think is going to be a great asset to the TEP.
I agree. He's a good guy. So yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. I forgot about that. But yeah, I'd love to have you back on. We could talk about anything, just about anything,
awesome.
Of course. And I appreciate everything that you've done. Like I said, you've influenced me and you've influenced countless others. So thank you for stepping up when you did and continuing to step up. I appreciate you. And thanks for talking to me tonight for almost a full 90 minutes. So I appreciate you. And
Anytime, man.
Good luck with your kids. I appreciate you, man. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.